you all are the ones that make things happen and help us pay the bills. So about a month or so ago, I called up Mayor Sibold, Chairman Bennett, several folks, talked to Mr. Clemens, and just asked them what if they thought that there was any interest in talking about this before we even brought it out. And they kind of had the same consensus that a lot of the community does. It would be great to do if we can come up with the right plan. And so I've been doing my homework, trying to get the right plan in order. Our board penned a letter that we approved unanimously to send out to all of the Board of Supervisors, the Covington City Council, and the Covington School Board. I know several of you know about the makeup of our board, but I think it says great things for our board that they've trusted me to present this, because they know that I've always been a proponent of a joint school system, and I see the kids from Covington the same way I see the kids from Alleghany County. But let me read you all the letter, and then I'll give you a little bit more background information. Dear members of the Covington City School Board, Covington City Council, and the Alleghany County Board of Supervisors, greetings from the Alleghany County School Board. As members of the Alleghany County School Board, we are not only committed to the students of today, but also to the future of our educational system in the Alleghany Islands as a whole. The Alleghany County and Covington school systems have seen a significant decline in enrollment over the past several decades due to jobs moving overseas, a changing world economy, and in some cases, just downright bad luck. As you will remember, several years ago, the County School Board closed Boiling Spring and Falling Spring elementary schools. It was a tough time for our community and for our board. In the 2 years following the closure of our 2 elementary schools, 2 of our board members, Randy Tucker and Jacob Wright, were appointed, and soon after were involved in talks with Covington regarding a joint school system. It was probably too soon after the schools were closed. There were too many wheels in motion, too much emotion. Talks were called off, and each system chose to work on progressing their own separate programs. Since that point, our 2 school boards have done a great job making sure every public schools in the Alleghany Islands is accredited. Since the last meeting to discuss a joint school system between the 2 boards, 9 of the combined 12 members are new. Over the past several years, our systems have made great strides in working together, and it seems we are always finding new ways to use our allegiance for the betterment of the youth in the Alleghany Highlands. We are very excited that it appears over the past month we have worked out a joint calendar to begin the 2019 school year with both systems on the same page. The youth are our future, and whether they go to your schools or our schools, they are part of this community. We are all on the same team. We work together, we pray together, and we play together. Our successes are your successes, and your successes are our successes. We are very lucky to have a supportive City Council and Board of Supervisors that funds us at a higher percentage above the state requirements than almost every other community in the Commonwealth. The combining of our school systems would not be a huge savings to taxpayers from the onset, but rather a more efficient use of their money. We feel that we could combine our resources and offer more opportunities, a better use of taxpayer money, and solidify the educational future for our next generation. The plan for a merged system must be diplomatic, well thought out, and be centered around what is best for the future of our community, the students. A unified Alleghany Highlands will solidify our future, increase the quality of life, and most importantly, offer the future generations the best opportunities as they pursue additional educational opportunities or choose to enter the workforce with the skills they have gained through our programs. We look forward to continuing our current allegiance and working towards unifying our wonderful community. We are asking that the 2 school boards, City Council, and the Board of Supervisors each appoint 2 members to be a part of a group that will discuss a plan that would be both diplomatic, and beneficial to the future generations of the Allegheny Highlands. We thank you for your time and dedication to our community and hope to hear from you soon. Sincerely, the Alleghany County School Board. And the letter is signed by all of our school board members. Since this letter was written, I contacted Terry Alston, and I traveled to Richmond last week to meet with a legislative financial analyst, and she's kind of in charge of all the educational funding for the legislature. And one of the things that's happening this year is that when Clifton Forge reverted to a town, and they became a part of our school. I mean, they've always been a part of our school system, but when they reverted to a town, our school system benefited from their local composite index. And for 15 years, we have been on their lower composite index, which is 2.2423. Next year, the 15-year window will be closing. And so this is the final year. And this is also the middle of the biennium for the legislature. So next year, our local composite index will be 0.2899. Covington's current is a little bit higher, 0.2981, which means that Covington doesn't get quite as much money per student as we currently get. I asked the lady with the state I said that it was very unfortunate that if we are really trying to combine these school systems into a joint system, that this money is running out. And this local composite index is running out. Because next year it will make an impact on our local school board funding from the state close to $700,000. And I asked her if they ever extended those periods. And she told me that she thought it was a possibility if there was extenuating circumstances, if there was some reason that they would extend that. And she felt pretty certain that if we all agreed that we were working together to try to come up with a joint school system plan, that the legislature in January would make a budget addendum, right? That would possibly allow us to keep that number, that 0.2423 local composite index. And with that being said, that if we came to an agreement, that was one of the things that we could possibly ask for, is for them to continue that lower composite index number for a certain amount of time so that we could equalize salaries right off the bat between Covington and Alleghany. One of the other things that I asked for was, some people don't know this, but with the school system we have standards of quality that we're supposed to upkeep. They say there are a certain amount of principals, a certain amount of custodians, a certain amount of bus drivers, and all of those per school system based on numbers. In combining school systems, we don't want anybody to lose a job. We don't want anybody to be frozen on their pay scale. You know, we don't want people to be negatively affected by closure. But what we would like to do is be able to, through attrition, there are probably positions that we won't keep. There will be duplicacies that we would, eventually get rid of. But we will be rather inefficient for the first couple years until some people start retiring. And the way that the state retirement is set up, you get paid your pension based on your highest earning 3 years. So I think for the first 3 years, a lot of those Alleghany teachers are not going to retire. We had a lot of Alleghany teachers retire in the past couple of years, but I think a lot of them will hold on and wait 3 years so they can get the higher pension. So that's one of the reasons we would need to extend things out. But she seemed it was such a great experience to go down there and meet someone that cared about small town America. And, we always hear about Richmond and funding, and it's so scary. And she was telling us how we could word things, and Terry Austin was very helpful in, talking about different ways we could word things and have fun things. The state is interested in school districts combined, and that's something they're looking into heavily this year. She was very excited about the idea of us even talking about it, because she said that we could be an example for other communities, and that they would get behind us to try to make us successful, so everybody could say, look at the folks in the Allegheny Highlands, this is what they did, this is how they did it. And it was just so nice to see someone that really wanted us to succeed. And that's what I came out really feeling like, that she wanted us to succeed, and she wanted to help us. So one of the things she said was that if we could get support from the 4 local governing groups and let the people know in Richmond by their deadline, which is January 8th, for a budget addendum, that she thought we had a good chance of getting that our 0.2423 local composite index. Now that wouldn't just be going to the Alleghany County Public Schools, that would be going into an account where we could use that money for any kind of legal fees, any kind of studies, any kind of thing that would be involved with the joining of schools. Because we don't have money in our budget, and I know Covington City Schools doesn't have money in their budget to spend a bunch of extra money on this. But she thought that they would be very interested in that, and that with any remaining money that we could use that towards our eventual equalization of salaries. But it seems like a rush now. I wasn't expecting to go down there and her to say we could extend this local composite index. I had no idea that that would even be an option. But I spent 3 hours in Terry's office with her, and we racked our brains, and I would really like to give Terry Austin credit too, because he went out on a limb and got her to come meet with me, and she was definitely the right person for the job to meet with. It was a great experience, but I think that it could be a really positive thing for our 2 systems, and I'm not asking for anything more than for you all to say we'd like to look at it. Do you all have any questions for me?
Question. Several years ago, when they were talking about consolidating schools or merging them, so to speak, the state was offering a carrot out there that if you did, they would give you, I don't know, I think $500,000 to $750,000 per year for 5 years extra in order to do this. Is that still one of the possibilities as well? Eddie?
We looked into that before they stopped that. That was after Bedford City, Bedford County. There were no funds available when we talked last time. We had contacted Richmond, and there were no funds available at that point. They had done away with that plan. They may have brought it back, but it went away.
She acted like that we could kind of set the standard, and we would have to figure out a way to do it so that if 2 big systems decided to consolidate, it wouldn't bankrupt the state. But she acted like there was, and I told her about long bus rides and things like that, and that really hits home for those people because they're not used to that down there. But she was so positive about the whole situation. It was just.
Well, if it has gone away, it'll probably take an act of the General Assembly in order to get that back.
Right, it would. And that's what that January 8th is the time where you would have to make a budget amendment. And so the budget amendments have to be in by that point. And Terry said that he would be more than happy to carry the bill for us to try to get that to pass. and he thinks that we could get some other help from some of our neighboring communities that might be interested in doing that in the future. Delegate Landis, that's up near Stanton, I believe, Harrisburg, he has proposed some stuff, and he is actually, there is a joint subcommittee that is meeting this year just on this, on the idea of joint school systems for smaller communities like ours.
The composite index issue. You said that the county would be about a $700,000 swing.
That's what Mr. Rice told me yesterday. He thought, just as a ballpark figure, he thinks it would make about $700,000 difference if our student numbers remain pretty close to the same for next year.
And if it would have to be a joint system before Covington would be able to take advantage of that different composite index.
Yes, and that would be, so basically what she said was that we would all agree to write this budget amendment, and they would give a lump sum of money to us based on that budget amendment, but it would be used by our systems jointly, for figuring out what we would need to do. And I'm sure there are some legal things if we did decide, JRTC, we would have to break that tie, and there are some things that would just have to be switched around, and different legal fees and things like that would need to be taken care of. But it would be a nice nest egg that we could, I know that you all don't want any more studies about what we should do than I do. But we're going to need some outside help on a few things, and we're going to need some outside funding. But so the way she described this to me was, and she kind of made up a timeline that if we could do this budget amendment in January, we would hope that they approve it this winter, and July 1st we would get that money with the new fiscal year, and then we would be working on coming up with a plan, and we would present that plan to Richmond in the fall for them to, so we can have it all properly written up when they go in for their long session in January of 2020. And if they approved that, we would come back as our school boards and we would vote to accept that or not to accept that. And so it would be, and then it would go into effect possibly as early as July 1st, 2020. They also said, one of the things they said was that if we had any kind of outside sources that we could get to commit money based on the state committing their share of it, that would weigh heavily with the state as well. If we went to any local foundations, corporations, anything like that, that would have significant weight with the state. So that was kind of the timeline she gave us. But that local composite index, if it disappears in July 1st, I don't think we can take a year off and they'll come back and say, oh yeah, you guys can go back to the 0.24 and 2.3. I just don't see that happening. But I think if we carry it on, and I didn't even think that was a possibility before last Tuesday when I went to Richmond. Really didn't even think that was in play. But she seemed to think that it could be possible, and she thinks that now is the time to do it because there's a real energy in Richmond to do this.
So we need to get moving. I mean, that's what we're getting at. That we need to get the joint committee put together.
I think we have to be in agreement that we want to try to develop this, or at least talk about it.
But and
it's just talking about it.
Yeah.
I mean, this is just the idea that all we have to tell them in Richmond is that we are interested in talking about it, and we want to we want to work towards it. You know, it might not happen, but we're at least going to give it a shot. And you know, the way that this thing could happen is with the state. You know, and that's the only way it's going to happen, is if we get funding from the state. Because it's not fair to your teachers to get frozen, and it's not fair for our teachers to be working in the same school or something and be making a different salary. I mean, that was our stumbling block last time. You know, the salary and benefit equalization, and we could never figure that out. So now we got to go to Richmond and let them help us figure it out.
We've got that far. But it stopped in governance.
Yeah, it stopped somewhere in there. There was a couple of hang-ups.
Well, personally, I'd like to see Mr. Tucker and Mayor Sibold represent us if we get to that point and get this moving. I feel comfortable with both of y'all representing us if that's the consensus of everybody.
We can do that. I don't never heard anything that's too dangerous to be done.
And basically, all you need tonight is just, because we don't meet until the 8th.
That's it. We don't
Right,
need to get
right.
into the 8th, so-
And so I spoke to the school board, Covington School Board last night, and Mr. Clemens said that it might be possible for them to have a called meeting, but he wanted to be able to discuss it with all of his board members, which I completely understand. And I didn't expect to come to their meeting last night with a sense of urgency. But after hearing this in Richmond, I mean, there is kind of a sense of urgency. And our county board of supervisors didn't bring it up at their meeting, but there are several of them that said that they would be willing to call a meeting to talk about this as well. But they didn't want to be pushy towards the city, and you know, seemed like it was just a county thing.
Well, at this point, it sounds like we've got to get a little pushy. If we're going to make a January 8th application through Terry to the General Assembly. So like I say, I feel comfortable if it's everybody's consensus here for Tucker and Mayor Sibold to represent us.
Would that be great?
So
You good, Ray?
I take that to be the sense of Covington Council, is we're willing to move forward.
Perfect. Well, thank you all. I think this could be a great thing for our area. And, you know, $700,000 is $700,000.
I think it's important that, I think Eddie said it in meetings past, that the governments are getting involved with it. That is not only the school boards, but it's the two governing bodies, and I think that's important this time around that we haven't had in the past.
It is.
So I think with all four at the table, we got a good feeling.
I think, you know, I think the time is right, and if we can get the state to help us out, and they want to make us a poster child, it's about time they made the Alleghany Highlands a poster child for social positive. I mean, they owe it to us as far as I'm concerned.